Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Throne of Steel based on novel. So let's start. In the eyes of many lower ranked soldiers, Long Houchen was like the descending god of light, bestowing his warmth and sweeping away all their pain and fatigue. A feeling close to worship started to rise instantly in them. The scope of the Reign of Light was really large. Not only did it cover the whole Exorcist Mountain Pass, but even the location of the previous battlefield and the demon camp were engulfed inside. The demon god pillar glistened once again. The extremely beautiful light in the humans' eyes was a fatal catastrophe to the demons. 7 pillars of light spreading out similar auras of darkness soared to the sky, forming a dark red barrier using the 7 pillars as base, englobing the demon camp. Without a doubt, the spell Long Houchen completed had reached the scale of forbidden grade. And even Xing Yu had never seen one of such scale before. At the same time, this was the most peaceful forbidden spell that Xing Yu had ever seen. Some saints of the 9th step from the priest temple could also release healing spells of large scale and at the forbidden spell level, but its healing effects would be much more direct than Long Houchen's, and its effects also greater. However, it couldn't compare to Long Houchen's in terms of softness and scope. Englobing a third of the Exorcist Mountain Pass was the most a supreme powerhouse from the priest temple could do. And Long Houchen's forbidden spell took not much time to produce such a rain. Xing Yu had a deep reaction. Bathed in the holy rain, not only did his body draw benefit, but also his soul. It was cleansed, and his heart's wound healed. It had no less effect on him than on a wounded person that was made to recover by it. All negative feelings disappeared suddenly from the heads of the soldiers, and the injuries on their bodies slowly healed. Gradually, some of the soldiers started to kneel in front of Long Houchen, and this scene rapidly spread to the whole Exorcist city. Not only the lower soldiers kneeled, but even some powerhouses of the 5th and 6th step. They were completely purified of all bad things that had started to accumulate in them. Long Houchen's fully used spell was called Holy Rain, a light elemental forbidden spell that he had cultivated in the cave. In terms of healing effect, this forbidden healing spell usable by knights was unable to compare with the forbidden healing spell belonging to priests. After all, knights were not specialized in healing like priests. But this holy rain has its own features. The drops of rain are even more gentle in times of healing, and more easily absorbed. Furthermore, the long, steady period of healing and therapeutic relief would not only massively boost one side's morale and replenish physical power for the targets, but also get rid of negative feelings. In other words, in terms of healing alone, Divine Rain is quite below other healing forbidden spells, but it has many more uses. Furthermore, it requires only a third or a half of the full chant to start the forbidden rain. But its healing effect will vary with the strength of the user and will of course have limited effects when used by a guardian knight of the 8th step. Right before, when Long Houchen used Holy Rain, its range, purity and global effects were far above its original effects. The instantaneous flash of insights and ignition of his emotions, plus the mobilization of his physique as a god's chosen one made his use of this spell close to perfection. Even among the top 5 demon gods, only the demon god emperor, moon demon god, and star demon god could use something of such scale. The powerhouses from the assassin's temple that gave themselves the task of protecting Long Houchen returned to the city one after another. In town, Sheng Lingxin had long ago commanded the soldiers to leave an open space for Long Houchen, and when he landed in the city, the top powerhouses from the assassin temple all reflexively surrounded him. Having used such a powerful forbidden spell, they understood very clearly that this Golden Foundation Knight state must be in quite the weakened state. This was all the more reason to not let the demons take any opportunity. But of course, as it turned out, the demons currently didn't have forces to ambush him. When the 7 great demon gods released that dark red barrier, they expended a lot of power. Even if the demon god pillars were great, they served at most to amplify the wielder's strength, but their consumption of magic power remained considerable. What they faced was not Long Houchen but heaven's might. Star King was floating, but his wings had both vanished. His first movement was to turn around to face Long Houchen, still sitting on his back. His limpid eyes were full of reverence and warmth. "Master, I thank you." This appellation of master was chosen completely willingly by Star King. He followed Long Houchen because of his identity as Scion of Light, and not because of his approval of Houchen's character. The main point was that he could benefit from Long Houchen's pure light element. Additionally, he sensed Long Houchen's kindness. After following Long Houchen to the dragon-resisting mountain pass, Star King actually didn't feel really good. Seeing the Scion of Light's ongoing slaughters, although the ones slaughtered were demons, nonetheless his hand kept being contaminated with blood. But just a moment ago, Star King really became convinced by Long Houchen. As his mount, his perception of Long Houchen's emotions as he put Rain of Light into use was second to no one else, including all the changes in his emotions. At the time Long Houchen used it, he didn't put his own body's state in consideration at all, and that kindness deeply touched Star King, a light elemental magical beast of the kindest type. Just like the Divine Knights from the Night Temple, these 11 powerhouses from the Assassin Temple were of heroic grade, having reached the 9th step. They were the real core of the Assassin Temple's strength. The Night Temple's provisional Saint Knight head, the 12th Golden Knight, greets you, elders. Because of some special reasons, I am not allowed to reveal my name. Long Houchen gave the elders a knight salute. Including Xing Yu, the 7 elders returned the salute simultaneously, giving an assassin salute with the highest degree of respect. Xing Yu gave a sincere response, "Welcome to you, powerful Saint Knight head. The Assassin Temple will never forget everything you did for the Exorcist Mountain Pass. May the friendship between our 2 great temples last forever. If there is any help you may need, the Assassin Temple under my wing will not spare any cost for you." Xing Yu's speech was sincere, to the extent that even Yang Haohan had never obtained such a commitment from him. What he meant by these words is simple: from today on, as long as Long Houchen needs anything, the Assassin Temple will do its utmost to assist him. He received such an approval right because Long Houchen's Reign of Light couldn't come at a better time. In the Exorcist Mountain Pass were a lot of wounded, who not only suffered physically, but also mentally. And what's more, the continuous attack of the demon armies had made the faces of the soldiers assigned to the Exorcist Mountain Pass lose all color. The descent of Reign of Light relieved the soldiers from their exhaustion, and refilled them with self-confidence. And the healing of so many wounded gave the Exorcist Mountain Pass a whole new life. One could say that this powerful forbidden spell completely turned around their disadvantageous situation. If Xing Yu originally believed that the Exorcist Mountain Pass could last at least 1 more month, he was now confident that they were able to fight the demons to death for 1 year. In Xing Yu's eyes, the most important point in Reign of Light wasn't its healing properties, but its cure of the people's hearts, sweeping away all the haze in the soldiers' hearts. That was the reason why Xing Yu gave such a heavy promise. With this promise, the Assassin Temple will at least unconditionally assist Long Houchen in one matter, and that was no less than 1/6 of the Temple Alliance's force. Long Houchen had a blank look on his face, but didn't reject, only paying another knight salute to him. He didn't reject for complex reasons. Simply said, it was because of the Temple Alliance's internal structure. Anyone could tell that if the 6 great temples' 6 vocations could be perfectly combined together, and the 6 vocations could be evenly distributed in each defensive fort, the defense against the demons would be even greater. But why is it that they never did so? In the Temple Alliance's history, who knows how many elders attempted to make such changes? But it always failed, and that's because of the 6 great temples' self-protectionism. This was a helpless matter. If the 6 great temples could harmonize with each other, what would be done about the many resources they had accumulated over so many years? Manpower and resources would need to be distributed. Although the 6 great temples didn't really form 6 countries in the Temple Alliance, in actual fact every temple had a large autonomy. The Demon Hunt squads attempted long ago to tell the 6 great temples about the benefits of collaborating. But until this day, each of the 6 great temples wanted to do things in their way. Each had their own territory and each had their own stronghold. An individual's strength is always insignificant, and even if Long Houchen manages to obtain the approval of the Divine Throne of Eternity and Creation, can he resist the whole of demonkind on his own? The answer is no. To do that, he would need the support of the whole alliance, and would only have the possibility of launching a counterattack by holding authority over the whole alliance. This feat was impossible to realize for the current head of the Temple Alliance Yang Haohan, and Long Qianying couldn't either, but Long Houchen had this possibility. With an identity as Scion of Light and a God's Chosen One, he already had sufficient power to gain support. Moreover, the priest temple was already in favor of the fusion of the temples. As Long Houchen returned Xing Yu's politeness, he recalled his grandfather's sincere wishes. Suddenly came a figure that pressed through the crowd of people and wasn't stopped by the other heroic assassins. This figure immediately threw itself into Long Houchen's arms, giving him a deep hug. Seeing this, the looks on all of the present heroic assassins' faces became blank. Xing Yu was totally shocked at first, but then had a grotesque look, finally realizing the identity of this Saint Knight head that brought miracles. He understood his great-granddaughter just too well. Aside from this kid, who else could she be so excited to see, to the extent of taking the initiative to throw herself at him? Even after losing her memories, his treasured great-granddaughter couldn't possibly have such a change of heart. But after realizing the identity of this Golden Foundation Knight, Shen Yu's shock became even more intense. Over this 1 year and a half, he had been giving his all in teaching Cai'er, who didn't betray his expectations at all, and grew at a frightening speed. Her cultivation already reached the 6th rank of the 7th step, and in Shen Yu's eyes, this cultivation speed should have overtaken that boy's, which gave him a lot of pride. However, the reality was just that cruel. When this guy reappeared, he turned out to have already become a knight of the 8th step, and also obtained a Golden Foundation armor of epic tier. Could this be a token of favoritism from the Knight Temple? Shen Yu was already over 100 years old, but wasn't senile yet. Was there a need for favoritism? His previous spell was already enough of a proof. Even if that forbidden spell was sneakily launched through a scroll, it couldn't show its might without sufficient strength from the user. Moreover, he had personally heard the process of Long Haochen's chanting. Couldn't this little guy have already attained the 9th step? This was Shen Yu's greatest doubt. And this only made his shock even greater. Cai'er, Cai'er. Long Haochen gently called out her name, his voice still shaking. His emotions became so unstable that the orange glints on his armor started to undulate irregularly. Shen Yu coughed, saying, "Knighthead, you have just used a forbidden spell. Maybe you should take a rest in our assassin temple." This was a reminder for this couple of youngsters that this was the Exorcist Mountain Pass city, center of a large crowd's attention. Actually, the most shocked spectator was situated on the 2nd layer of the Exorcist Mountain Pass. Shen Lingxin's eyes opened so wide they nearly split. Seeing his daughter rush into a man's arms, he almost fell from the 2nd layer. He absolutely didn't believe that person to be Long Haochen. In his heart, Long Haochen was already his son-in-law. But he subconsciously believed that a Golden Foundation Knight would at the very least be 50 years old. What was wrong with Cai'er? Could she have fallen for the hero? But as the military chief of the Exorcist Mountain Pass, what else could he do than stare at that? By chance, Cai'er's mother Lan Yenyu was still resting at home due to some injuries, or both husband and wife would be witness to such an embarrassment. Shen Lingxin secretly thought, "Cai'er, oh Cai'er. You can't have a change of affection like that. Otherwise, how do you want me to justify myself to Brother Long, to Haochen?" But seeing such a strong provisional Saint Knight head, how come he hadn't heard of him before? Did Cai'er and Long Haochen separate after hearing Shen Yu's warning? The answer was negative, and Shen Yu and the other heroic assassins did not know whether to laugh or cry from what followed, seeing Cai'er's body disappear. Invisibility. That powerful assassin ability was being used to further the affection between a man and a woman. Cai'er's body seemed to have faded away, but the tactile sensation was still present. Long Haochen was unwilling to part with her and kept embracing her under the escort of the heroic assassins. And under the fanatical watch of the soldiers, Long Haochen rode Star King to head down toward Exorcist City. Assassin Temple. So it's really you, brat. When Shen Yu saw Long Haochen after his helmet was taken off, he still had difficulty believing his eyes. This private room was used in ordinary times for Shen Yu to cultivate, so naturally, no one else would come here to disturb them. After their return to the Assassin Temple, Shen Yu had directly brought Long Haochen and Cai'er back to this personal room of his. Now, Cai'er was still clinging to Long Haochen's side. After a year and a half of separation, she had become incomparably unable to part with him. Although she still was missing her memories, she had already regained her feelings for him. Long Haochen wanted to kneel down to make his own salutations to Shen Yu. In his capacity as Cai'er's lover, Haochen needed to pay homage to Shen Yu and her elder relatives. Outside, he was representing the Knight Temple, but in this private room, he was only standing for himself. Enough, you are already Saint Knighthead, no need for such formalities. How did you cultivate to this level? It can't be that Yang Haohan and Long Qianying gave you some cultivation drugs with bad repercussions, but how else could you have cultivated so fast? This heroic senior then started to laugh at his own joke, before stopping suddenly after seeing Long Haochen nod earnestly. What? So you really went deep cultivating for a year? Shen Yu's wrinkles were twitching. Let it be, you two have a good chat. I won't bother you two any longer. He waved his hands and stepped across, disappearing directly from the room. Cai'er let out a laugh. Great-grandfather, you're so jealous. At the sight of the smile on her face, Long Haochen's eyes flashed with a faint trace of disappointment. He knew Cai'er just too well, and right for that reason, he determined from her facial expression that her memories weren't recovered at all, and that Cai'er was still amnesic. Cai'er immediately discovered his change in mood, and lowered her head slightly. I am sorry, I just... She was not left the time to finish the sentence, interrupted by a sudden hug by Long Haochen, who interrupted with a gentle tone of voice. No, I should be the sorry one. I did not protect you well. No matter what, seeing you again is really good. Cai'er drew herself closely towards him, with a soft voice. I don't know what my feelings were when I used to love you before that, but I am certain that I am still in love with you. That day, when you left, I felt like I had lost something important. Now that we finally reunited, I will go wherever you go. I will definitely convince great-grandfather. I don't want to have to look at your departing figure again. Long Houchen fondled her hair gently. Be at ease. This time, I am not only taking you with me, but we will also gather with the others to reform our 64th Commander Grey Demon Hunt Squad. Cai'er lifted up her head, surprised. You have the permission of the Alliance? I would say I have it. However, we will have to make enough contributions in every defensive fort. I think it should be enough for the Exorcist Mountain Pass. If not, we will have to remain for longer. It is surely not enough. Right at this time, shadows flashed, and Sheng Yu reappeared. Seeing him, Cai'er hurriedly let go of her embrace, and looked flushed. Great-grandfather, how come you are back? The instant they had just reunited was long past, so how could she not feel embarrassed? Sheng Yu looked furious. What's wrong if I am back? When I just left, I was thinking, what if after letting the two of you share a room, and meet again after a long time of separation, something were to happen due to the excitement? What's wrong with me wanting to be the first to hold my great-great-grandson? But this won't do. Sheng Yu's great-granddaughter needs to be officially wed before bearing a child. Great-grandfather, what are you speaking about? Cai'er's face became red like an apple, and appeared at Sheng Yu's side with a flash, grabbing on his beard to pull it. Be a good girl, don't pull, I only have this much beard. Your great-grandfather needs to keep some of his image in front of others. Fool, I am doing this for your good. Aren't you afraid of being taken advantage of? Long Houchen was very sincere. Sheng Yu, whose previous state of mood had vanished, replied with a nod. I knew I couldn't keep you here. Actually, what you did today is already worth more than 1 million contribution points. That's how the facts were. His divine blessing almost strengthened the whole Exorcist Mountain Pass by 1/3, and that was a conservative estimate. Sheng Yu continued, time to go. You two come with me. This place is not really safe. When we get to the public places, at least we will be able to guarantee my great-granddaughter's safety. Cai'er immediately stamped the ground and pouted. Here you go again, great-grandfather. So annoying. However, the two of them still followed Sheng Yu outside the room. Sheng Yu arranged a room for Long Houchen to reside in with Han Yu. He really was visibly guarding against the possibility of Long Houchen and Cai'er having an intimate relationship. In the following few days, the Exorcist Mountain Pass was exceptionally peaceful. The large majority of the demons seemed to have lost their drive, and aside from the unlit demon god pillar of the blazing lion demon god, the other 7 were still flickering, as if guarding against a human attack. Actually, it really made sense that they were on such high guard. Long Houchen's forbidden spell on an ultra-large scale gave them an unbearable fright. What they feared the most was that Long Houchen comes as they are launching the attack. At such times, the 7 demon gods were incapable of protecting their army. But of course, they didn't know that Long Houchen's Reign of Light was an all-out attempt. Launching it once again would need to wait for his spiritual energy to break through to 200,000. Grandpa, the situation is already pretty good in the mountain pass. I have already organized the restoration of the city walls since it's a rare chance to see the demons so calm. With this short time of adjustment, we will at least recover triple the defensive power of our Exorcist Mountain Pass. Sheng Yu, the couple formed by Sheng Lingxin and his wife, Long Houchen, Han Yu and Cai'er had dinner together, and Sheng Lingxin reported to Sheng Yu about the condition of the Exorcist Mountain Pass. The wife and husband were now aware that Long Houchen was the 12th Golden Foundation Knight, but that for the sake of concealing his true identity, he had to wear his armor every day, to avoid revealing his true features. As Sheng Lingxin spoke to Sheng Yu, his eyes frequently swept past his soon-to-be son-in-law. When he learned that this knight was Long Houchen, his feeling of unbelief lasted for no less than a few hours. Just how long had it been? At the time when Long Houchen was leading his demon hunt squad to the Exorcist Mountain Pass to undergo the trainee mission, he was still weak to the extent of needing his protection on the battlefield. But now, his cultivation clearly surpassed Lingxin's own. Although Sheng Lingxin also finally broke through the 8th step, the age gap between them was of at least 1 generation. Sheng Lingxin was also of a proud bloodline. His admiration for Long Xingyu was sincere, but he didn't expect Long Houchen's cultivation to have already surpassed his own. Sheng Yu glanced down. How's the military situation? After saying that, he came to a pause and looked at Sheng Yu and Sheng Lingxin's reactions. Sheng Yu looked surprised while Sheng Lingxin's expression became even more excited and expectant, nodding slightly. Keep going. Long Houchen replied, the Assassin Temple's strong points lie in attacking and not defending. Assassins are really unfit for a defensive battle behind city walls. It's as if we were to put a group of mags in the front lines. The Exorcist Mountain Pass surely needs to be defended, but I believe that we can change that from a passive defense to an active defense. In short, offense would be the greatest defense. That day, I saw that the elders at the heroic assassin step were over a dozen. Such a force wouldn't lose out greatly even in front of demon gods, to say nothing about now that there is one less of them. If we can use harassing and ambushing tactics against the demon camps, their strength when attacking our Exorcist mountain pass will surely take a huge blow. And at the same time, ambushes, surprise attacks, and stealth are all fields of expertise for the Assassin Temple. Why wouldn't we make use of our dominant points? By taking a beating passively, we can only become more and more passive. Different occupations should use different methods to cope against the enemy. Well spoken. Sheng Lingxin tapped on his thigh in great excitement. Hao-Chen, I have exactly the same opinion as you. Sheng Yu snorted in anger, breaking off Sheng Lingxin's great excitement. Sheng Lingxin looked back at his grandfather, somewhat ashamed, a bitter smile on his face. Grandfather, I am not saying that your policy is wrong. After pondering briefly, Sheng Yu replied, okay, then come along. Lan Yanyu seemed to want to say something, but was stopped by Sheng Lingxin's look. How could one act on impulse in such a big matter? Long Hao-Chen and Kia weren't delicate flowers to be kept safe. Sheng Yu raised his head and took a look at the deep night, his eyes surging with coldness. Long Hao-Chen could sense an intangible enhancement of his aura. This wasn't might but a kind of extraordinary special quality that gave Long Hao-Chen terrible shivers. Outside of the 10 heroic assassins of the 9th step that Long Hao-Chen had seen the other day, another 21 hidden assassins came besides. They were all assassin emperors of the 8th step. Sheng Yu shifted his glance toward Long Hao-Chen, Kia, and Han Yu, and after a little thought ordered, Han Yu, don't come along. Stay with Lingxin in the Exorcist Mountain Pass to guard the city. The main point on this operation will be speed. Your cultivation is rather lower and speed isn't your field of expertise. Han Yu really wanted to fight allergized Long Hao-Chen and Kia, but he knew that Sheng Yu was right. Giving his agreement, he withdrew with some unwillingness. Sheng Yu looked at the bright dazzling golden foundation armor, but before he even had the chance to open his mouth, Long Hao-Chen had taken out a black cloak that draped over his whole body as psychic fluctuations forming ripples instantly concealed his whole aura. Sheng Yu had a thin smile on his face, thinking secretly, this brat has already been making good preparations for the time to have affairs. 11 heroic knights, plus 21 hidden knights, Long Hao-Chen and Kia made up a total of 34 people. Sheng Yu declared, the demon offenses have been coming for a long time already, and now should be the time for us to show them what we can do. We are going to launch a surprise attack. It will have a single objective, and that is to kill as many higher-ranked demons as possible. I have to emphasize 2 points. First, no one is to insist on fighting too long, everyone must immediately listen to the orders of retreat. When they come, the heroic assassins will form the rear. Second, do not attempt to kill the demon gods. They are under the protection of their demon god pillars and will be very hard to kill. Our goal is the demons of the 5th step and above. As assassins, we are expert in surprise attacks, not prolonged battles. During this operation, take good care with your concealment. There's not much else that I have to say. Start off. Sheng Yu waved his hand, and his figure flashed, taking the lead before the other assassins disappeared one after another. Long Hao-Chen and Kia dashed out simultaneously, but just after leaving, he muttered some words to Lan Yanyu. Then he pulled Kia's hand away. Looking at their departing figures, Lan Yanyu let out a light sigh. Hao-Chen is really a pretty good boy. Sheng Lingxin asked, what did he just tell you? He said that if someone wants to hurt Kia, he'll have to do it over his corpse. Sheng Lingxin had a smile. As a mother-in-law, you starting to like him gradually? Lan Yanyu replied with a cold stare, I'm not the one who chose this son-in-law. Your daughter made the decision all alone. What can I even say about a couple that lives together starting from the age of 14? Let's go, we have work around the city's walls as well. I already gave the order for the armies to gather. I really wish I had joined grandfather's group. What a shame. The group of powerful hidden knights lifted up their right hands, tapping lightly on the space between their eyebrows, before making a gesture of throat-cutting. This was their way to express their resolution to Sheng Yu. This method was specific to assassins. When operating, they wouldn't communicate with words. Gestures and movements become their greatest means of communication. The previous movement signifies that they will fight the enemies smartly, and get rid of them. Sheng Yu shifted his glance to Long Hao-Chen, looking at him and then at Kia. Long Hao-Chen immediately nodded to him, expressing his understanding. Sheng Yu was warning him to protect Kia and himself well. Sheng Yu waved his hand and everyone started off at the same time, scattering soundlessly to all directions, before disappearing under the cover of night without a single trace. Just as Long Hao-Chen said, the assassin's fields of expertise are infiltration and assassination, not just honorable battles. In the dark, an assassin is like a fish in water. These powerhouses all had the same feeling of thrill at that very moment. No one pondered over how much they could do during these operations, all of them were focused on giving vent and slaughtering to their fill. Kia, hide yourself and follow me. Long Hao-Chen spoke low. Yeah. Kia acquiesced, and disappeared from Long Hao-Chen's side in a flash. If his mental force wasn't gathered specifically in her direction, he would also be unable to detect her presence. Compared to a year and a half before, Cai'er really had become more powerful. Long Houchen's speed was quite a bit slower than the powerhouses from the Assassin Temple, but he didn't show the slightest sign of hastiness. Making a detour to the side without changing his speed, he headed to the demon camp by an indirect route. Houchen, just where are we going? Aren't we supposed to attack the demon camp by surprise? This detour is too slow. Although great-grandfather and the others shouldn't find out about that, if we fall too far behind, I'm afraid that we won't come back with the slightest harvest. Cai'er did not become anxious because of a desire to kill the enemies, but on Long Houchen's behalf. Houchen was the only one from the Night Temple participating, so in case his results were too lacking, wouldn't his reputation as Saint Nighthead be in danger? That's especially the case after his great power was displayed so brazenly just before. Long Houchen replied in a low voice, "Don't make any sound. Follow me and that's all. We will strive for the greatest accomplishments." The demon camps were still not aware that a slaughtering operation was aimed against them. Almost the entirety of the greatest powerhouses at the Assassin Temple's disposal was coming at them, formally coming up. The gap between the demon side and the human side in this regard was very wide. The dragon-resisting mountain pass was really full of demon elites, including 3 demon emperor legions. From this could be pointed out the wide gap in global strength between the Night Temple and the Assassin Temple. And while facing so many demon elites, the losses were still far fewer than the Assassin Temple. The demons standing in garrison outside the Exorcist Mountain Pass far exceeded the ones outside the dragon-resisting Mountain Pass in quantity, especially the seas of dual-bladed demons. These low-ranked demons had limited fighting abilities, to the extent of being no match in 1-versus-1 combat against a trained grown man. But their quantities were unmatchable. So most of the demons in garrison outside the demon camps were these dual-bladed demons of low grade. Dual-bladed demons had very low positions among demonkin, to the extent that when they were used as food, no other race would be willing to consume their corpses, so they were mostly used to feed each other. Let alone them, even the deep green dual-bladed demons would not necessarily be treated as luxurious food in such a demon army. The best tents were all transferred to the north, used by the armies laying siege against the dragon-resisting mountain pass. Within the demon armies outside the Exorcist Mountain Pass, only those reaching the 6th step at least were qualified to lodge in tents. This was the reason why Xingyu said they were mostly aiming at the demons at the 5th and 6th step. No one even bothered asking for a way to find the good targets. Just identifying some tents was enough. As long as they were living in tents, they wouldn't be a bad target. After sweeping through the dual-bladed demons, they came across dispersed lower-ranked demons and demonic wolves. Xingyu believed that at this rate, they would reach the heart of the demon camp while still hidden. This demon camp had over 1 million soldiers in garrison. Most of the time, their total number even approached 2 million. Therefore, the size of the camp was only big enough for a small proportion of the large army. At the time of the attack, the assassins all dispersed, which was why they weren't afraid of going after same targets by mistake. This demon camp had over 20 different races in it, which were all in slumberland since long ago. In the sky a few ripples appeared, where Xingyu's invisible figure shifted. At this time, his strongest area of expertise came to view. Traveling while remaining totally invisible was by no way something everyone at the 9th rank could do. Xingyu observed the situation in the camp. The demons of all 20 races were scattered about in sleep. This camp could still be regarded as large enough for the sleepers to spread out. To an assassin, extreme prudence is a must-have during an operation, and this applies even when it is known that the enemy is much weaker. The ability of invisibility wears off immediately in case of attack, therefore it was no easy feat to dispose of enemies at the 6th step without a single sound. In this part of the camp were gathered demonic wolves, but these ones were rather taller than ordinary ones, and had dark golden hairs. These were demonic wolves of commander class, whose strength varied between the 6th and the 7th step. Launching an attack, Xingyu's figure came back into view. However, he was like a part of darkness, not only totally odorless, even the wolf's eyes might not be able to distinguish him in the darkness. The dagger was stealthily pulled away, and didn't let a single trace of blood escape. Almost all weapons used by high-level assassins would be imbued with poison called ashes. In itself, it can't be called a fatal poison, only, it will immediately close the enemy's wound. Because it is an extremely potent burning poison, it will, in case of contact with the skin, immediately produce an intense cauterization. The previous strike of Xingyu caused the enemy's wound to cauterize completely, which is why there was no trace of blood leaking out. This was for the sake of keeping his assassination concealed. The flow of blood stopped totally, and for at least an hour, this demonic wolf won't show any trace of blood from his 7 apertures. The Assassination Temple focused its researches on assassination, and there's no way a legacy of several thousand years old could be simple. After one attack ended smoothly, Xingyu didn't stop at that. Using the same method, he rapidly disposed of all 8 demonic wolves resting in this portion of the camp. Right at this time happened a change he didn't expect. A demonic wolf growled before standing up, on the verge of exiting the camp. Was this an urge of going to pee? Shen Yu's expression immediately became quite grotesque. This kind of high-level demonic wolves had quite acute senses. Maybe the whole course of events that happened during its sleep wasn't clear in its eyes, but if he really goes to pee, the blowing wind will surely rouse him, and then, there's no way he would not notice that something wrong happened. At least, the absence of breath from his mates couldn't go unnoticed. But Shen Yu didn't act blindly. Looking at that leaving demonic wolf, he swept across and disposed of the remaining 3 asleep demonic wolves, before disappearing once again in the darkness. A short time later, the demonic wolf that had left a bit earlier came back. As expected, his eyes looked more focused, and at the time he was heading back to his own bed, he suddenly realized that something was wrong, unconsciously looking at the direction of his comrades. But right then, a glowing sensation spread to his brain, and his whole consciousness went black. Shen Yu's eyes glinted, and in a flash of black light, he recovered the corpses of these 12 demonic wolf commanders at light speed. This was not only for the sake of preventing news of their deaths from leaking out, but also for their high-level magical crystals which were directly usable by magic cannons. The magic cannons of the Exorcist Mountain Pass went and fired for already 1 year. If they could reactivate several dozen of them, what would there be to fear from these nasty demonic eye soldiers? Although the military camp covered quite large area, Long Haochen's mental force was quite considerable, so within his scope of detection, there must have been at least some assassin performing his duty. The fact he didn't detect any was ample proof of their ability. Long Haochen was not worried in the slightest. The more time passed, the greater the assassin's accomplishments would grow. This was a really good thing. The best would be for the situation to last for a while. Given the assassin's strength, even if they only swept a division of the camp every minute, this would mean the death of hundreds demons per minute. Keep it up. Long Haochen was cheering for them inwardly, but didn't show any intention to join their operation, and didn't even let Cai'er participate. All he did was to occasionally raise his head and look into the direction of the distant demon god pillars, their faint black color glinting. Time passed minute after minute and second after second. The demons were totally unaware, as a slaughter took place in the whole demon camp. The breathing sounds diminished in one camp after another, and formless figures came out, sinking deeper inside. In a blink of an eye, more than 10 minutes passed. Long Haochen's fists were clenched tightly since long ago, and he was clearly filled with great excitement. In only 10 or so minutes, the contribution made by their operation was already extremely great. After all, their goals weren't the average demons. Right at this time, the central of the 7 demon god pillars shone greatly, and next, the other 6 demon god pillars lit up brilliantly. Under Long Haochen's attentive watch, the glint that was nearest to Cai'er and him instantly burst out with incomparable brilliance, letting out a wide expanse of grey light encompassing at least 4 or 5 camp divisions. Everywhere this grey passed, the ground seemed as if struck by meteors. Those camp divisions totally disappeared in the midst of fierce sounds of explosions. Then, the figure that was its source disappeared totally, sinking into the sky as it faded away. Clearly, even if they were found out, the assassins were still set on making a great score before departing. Long Haochen didn't have the leisure to ponder about these issues, and quickly turned to transmit his voice to Cai'er, saying, "Prepare to act. In a moment you will see me move against the enemy, then, after we clash, I want you to immediately prepare to use the sickle of the god of death while I feign a panicked retreat to draw them in. You will be hiding yourself on my escape route. When I head to your direction for a counterattack, we will attack from both sides. Understood?" "Understood." Cai'er immediately replied, clearly understanding Long Haochen's plan. Due to that sharp shrill as well as the dozens of glints that had risen so suddenly, the whole demon camp immediately became disorderly. Countless demons were rushing out from the camp, and the ones outside were also risen up, looking for the enemy's tracks in a frenzy. However, finding a dozen or so people in this camp of 1 million was easier said than done, not to mention that these assassins were masters in the art of concealment. Looking for them was no different than looking for a needle in the sea. In the center of the demon camp, 7 demon god pillars flashed out, aiming in one direction with perfect cohesion. This direction was between the demon camp and the Exorcist Mountain Pass. In front of such a situation, Long Haochen couldn't help but gasp in secret admiration. The demons were really powerful. For these 7 demon gods to be able to react so rapidly in such a situation made him think, "I'm afraid that in this surprise attack, the Assassin Temple will have some losses. I just hope that these losses won't be too great." He was originally prepared to wait for some more time, but seeing the current situation, he decided to shift his plan earlier. Quietly standing straight, Long Haochen swept his eyes around, taking in the full situation. He abruptly soared up, bursting out with a resplendent bright light which turned into an extreme burst of brilliant light aimed to all 4 directions. That was light meteors shower strike. A great expanse of bright golden light meteors fiercely struck the demon camp below. What Long Haochen sought in this blow was not the offensive strength but the area of effect. A large area in the camp was blown away by light meteor shower, But as the large majority of the demons inside had already rushed out from their tents, they were able to hastily block Long Houchen's attack. After the launch of this attack, Long Houchen's whole body came to a standstill, before he turned and ran away, making a mad rush without leaving the ground. On his right hand, rippling light was sparkling brilliantly, continuously spraying out myriads of golden lights, as it was thrust in the midst of an area of lower-level demons. The demons ate quite a severe loss from Long Houchen's actions. The ordinary ones of the 4th and 5th step were all crushed in the face of his attacks. How could they have a way to survive that? Moreover, it was reinforced by ripples of light. One could see a golden figure heading through the demon camp. Everywhere it passed, golden light sprinkled out from his body. Each sprinkle took along the lives of over a dozen of the lower-ranked demons every time. Demon wiping flash, boosted by ripples of light, was enough to even totally pierce through the defenses of some demons of the 6th step. Finally, the solid green-lit demon god had chased him near enough, and from him a gaudy green ray was shot out, piercing the air to aim straight at Long Houchen. This green ray was extremely fast, gradually looming larger in the sky. Its outside part was surprisingly burning with a black flame, just like a meteor rushing at Long Houchen. When it seemed on the verge of hitting, Long Houchen's figure flashed and golden flames were shot out from his back, propelling him forward at a frightening speed. His sudden rush through the camp of low-level demons left a thin bloody swath as he cut his way through them. This mere dodge propelled him over 200 meters forward, escaping this bombarding attack that came from above. A large boom rang out on the ground, the intense greenish-black flames enveloping an area of over 300 meters in diameter. The demons that didn't die yet under his hand didn't even have the time to scream, and simply turned into ashes dissolving in the air. The demon god from whom this attack originated also finally appeared. It was a human-shaped figure glistening in green, riding a green horse. It looked to be a handsome man over 2 meters tall, but both he and his horse had pairs of enchanting red-colored eyes. The scene of his figure becoming alternately hidden and visible due to the surrounding green light was strange. Clad in green armor, he had a spear hung on the saddle of his winged horse. Goblin Knight Seer, 70th ranked of the 72 demon gods. He could be considered an old mate of the blazing lion demon Alossa as well as the winged ox demon Zagan. Obviously, they had been assigned to this area all this time, as the demon god emperor would naturally not assign 3 demon gods already familiar with this area to somewhere else. Because of their rather lower ranking, they were merely stripped of their status of commander here. But as demon gods they obviously retained very majestic positions in this camp. The fact that the demons found out about the Assassin Temple's raid was really mysterious. And its explanation was beyond the comprehension of the Assassin Temple's powerhouses. During a slaughter of a dozen or so minutes, over 1,000 demons of the 6th step at least that died. Demons were also living beings, breathing creatures. When they died, their breath would also disappear. Because the powerhouses from the Assassin Temple were approaching the camp from its outside, the missing demon breaths were mostly located on the outer part of the camp. The 7 great demon gods were always scanning the situation in the camp through their demon god pillars, even in times of cultivation or sleep. Part 1 end here.